Okay, go ahead and call the meeting to order. Regular scheduled meeting of the USD 379 School Board. First thing we need to do is approval of agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Motion,
Second.
a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Pledge of allegiance. They also do them on videotape, and so it's always good for everybody to be involved. So thanks for being here tonight. On communications part, see, need to thank you here from the Kansas Teachers of the Year for hosting campus, and there's a journal here from the Kansas City High School Activities, a winter journal. So and then I think we all got invited to the dinner at Wakefield on December 10th. So district employees and students will be asked to stop speaking or cease their remarks. If a patron or parent has a concern with one or more employees, the board will refer that person to the appropriate administrator, and the board will follow up at a future meeting. The person speaking will be allowed 3 minutes to express their opinions. Thank you for taking your time to discuss district business with the board. So with that, Susie.
When I was in the 7th grade, I made 2 important career decisions. First, I did not want to be a teacher. It was too difficult, too challenging, and required too much patience. The second was I wanted to be a social worker. Ironically, in 1981, both of those careers crossed my path. Chuck Stewart hired me as the district's first school social worker. In this position, I had the opportunity to get to know and observe many teachers from preschool to high school and reconfirm my notion that teaching was hard, challenging, and required a great deal of patience. My respect for the profession grew with each passing year. The most amazing thing to me were the kids of teachers who grew up to become teachers themselves, knowing full well what it meant in terms of work demands and mediocre pay. Tonight, I want to highlight the legacy of teachers in our district. These are teachers who have children or grandchildren who are or have been teachers in our district. The first is the Lane family. Blackie Lane was a teacher at CCCHS in 1981 when I moved here. Several years later, his son Paul became a teacher and taught at CCCHS. More than a decade later, his son JD returned to Clay Center to teach at the middle school. Several decades later, Blackie's grandson Ian joined the CCCMS staff. Paul's wife Paula was also a teacher, and Ian's wife Stephanie is an administrator at Garfield. Blackie's daughter Suzanne Alberg is a school nurse. The next family that stands out to me is the Snodgrasses. Wayne taught instrumental music for many years, and after his death, CL returned to Clay Center to continue the strong musical tradition in the schools and the community. Going back a long way, Imogene Meek taught at Garfield School, and her daughter, Marita Geckler, was a kindergarten teacher at Wakefield. Other longtime combos are Carol Adams and her daughter Rhonda Gearhan, Dodie Reed and her daughter Jacqueline Fitzenmeyer, Lori Martin and her daughter Laurel Atholter, Al and Carolyn Kirtley and their daughter Jana Laffrey, Patty Ferguson and her son Greg, Marcy Schooley and her son Seth, Craig Brockman and his daughter Carrie Stratton, Ron and Marcia Coster and their daughter Megan Griffiths, Kelly Hayes and her daughter Mara Coster, Lisa Last and her son Austin, and not a teacher, but a longtime school psychologist, Clyde Wallenberg, and grandson Kelby Wishman. This is probably not a complete list, and I would like to know if there are some that I've missed. I'm so thankful that these people, knowing that teaching is hard, challenging, and requires patience, said yes to the profession anyway. When you're making decisions about the district, it is imperative that you consider teachers. Good teachers, excellent teachers are critical to student success and the quality of the school district. Quality schools draw families to our community and keep them here.
Thank you. All right, now we'll do presentations. So the first one is the policy updates.
Yeah, so these are regular annual, or biannual updates from KSB, and Audra does a great job of reflecting changes, through redlining in our policy, and just, we always present those 1 month, let them sit for 30 days, so you have plenty of time to do your research, and then we would, look to approve those in, January. So open to any questions or thoughts or anything that, you think we need to take a look at and talk about.
Anyone? On that? I don't, right then. Okay. Right. Move on to the next one. Lincoln and CCCMS building action plan.
So last month we had Garfield and the high school here. Tonight we have Lincoln and the middle school. And next month we'll have Wakefield as they represent, they have an elementary and a secondary plan, so they really have 2 schools. So Lincoln and CCCMS are here to tell you how their building action plans support the district plan. Just a reminder, went through the strategic plan and our 1 goal area of responsive culture of learning. This is where this action plan falls in place. We have a reading goal as tempered reading as well as post-secondary. So the success skills that our students need. And I'm not sure who wants to go first. Whoever wants to go, if you can come up, Mr. Kenny, okay, can you introduce whoever's here with you, please?
Yeah, we've got Sherry McGuire, one of our encore teachers who teaches art, both here in Lincoln and at Garfield, and Wendy Fox, one of our intervention teachers that works with all of our students. And me. Thank you, Kenny.
Go ahead, just go ahead, and they have a copy of it in front of them, so.
All right, so you've got our action plan in front of you. So this is just a little bit different than it probably was in the past. We made some adjustments based on what the district action plan was. For example, system goal number 1 in the past was related to our MTSS groups and Ames Web. We shifted that to focus on the Kansas assessment in the area of ELA, like Jacqueline had mentioned. And then system goal 2 was also just a slight shift in that we adjusted the goal to be wrapped into our Leader in Me adoption and implementation. The MRA, or measurable results assessment, it does measure 3 different categories: leadership, culture, and academics. Academics was our lowest score. This is a survey that's taken by parents and by staff, and then possibly by students. It's written at a 4th grade level, so we didn't have any students take it in the fall, but we're considering having students take it in the spring as they are outgoing 3rd graders. And of course, we'll get permission to do that from families if we do that. And then you can see lead measures down below. The first one is essentially the same as it had been in the past, focusing on the adoption and implementation of Into Reading, in utilizing our walkthrough data to ensure we're using that resource. And then this is where we brought the Ames Web data, which is our screening tool, in case you're not aware. We just shifted that down as one of our ways to measure the progress of teaching to the standards. And under student success skills, again, it comes back to Leader in Me, and we've kind of worked out a progression of implementing that throughout the school system. And again, we'll be using walkthrough data. And then one clarification, just in case it doesn't make a lot of sense, % of time in class. In my board report, which you've gotten and which might be discussed later, I've gone over what our behavior support specialists, the data we've collected thus far. So we're using that data to calculate percent of time in class for all students. That includes that behavior data as well as attendance data to see if we can measure that and increase that and check to see how we're doing throughout the year. Anything you want to add?
You guys want to share what your investigation teams are?
Those are changing. Through the redesign process, we had 3 investigation teams. We had real world, social emotional and ELA. And now that we're with the leader and me and we're doing a lot of activities with them, we're shifting to see what we want those investigative teams to do, and teachers will decide where they want to go and how they want to lead in that. And that's where we're headed next, because we'll have lighthouse teams, and really instead of investigation teams, we'll have action teams. So those will be our new action teams. We kind of got an idea, but still we're making it a whole team decision instead of just a few. So.
Okay. Any questions for Lincoln?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why I showed up, that's good. I'm Keith Hoffman. He was praised earlier as a generation person, and then you were worried about her showing up. Yeah. Anyway, but you've seen the others, let's roll through ours very quickly and we can talk about it. Yeah, our system goals 1 and 2, you can see them right there, but talking there, most everyone just did ELA, we added math in there. And the main thing with that was we have done some research and our graduation rates are a little bit higher. They feel like if kids are good at ELA and the math as well. And a couple of things there also, as we think about state assessment scores, a math test is pretty much a reading test at times. And so those kids can read better, they'll hopefully do better on the math test as well. So there's a couple of things we thought of as we worked through that. And system goal number 2 then is talking about socially prepared students with employability skills. And our goal basically we have 2 words here, accountability, or 3, accountability and high expectations. Try to improve that just across the board, ABC. So basically with system goal there, we're saying ABC is great, D is not good enough. And so we're working on that as far as that goes. And we try to do some things this year, even with some of our eligibility policies and things like that to show, hey, you need to kind of raise the bar on some things, which will hopefully help our kids as they transition to high school. But anyway, so you can see kind of our lead indicators there. If you have any questions, any of those, a lot of things are going really well for us. Comprehension groups talked about that, in grade level teams, they're working on plans. Like we have a new group that's starting right after Christmas, and we'll shift kind of MTSS group or intervention group, and we'll shift to some comprehension work they're doing. Just, we're looking at our data and looking at kids who need different things. PM Academy work is going well. Of course, vocabulary, I know we talked about that in other areas. That's one of our lead majors as well. That's been an emphasis for a while with us, and it's getting better and better. We feel like the vocabulary, so our teachers are really doing a nice job of that. So anyway, or I feel free to jump in.
You got
So anyway, goal area number 2, talking about that again, is it couple things there on the goal area number 2, implementation of the individual career plans. And Mr. Brummett used to do, our counselor used to do a lot of those just in his guidance lessons, but we've been able to kind of pass those down or send those to our advisory, which is our pause time. And that's been real helpful. Number 1, our teachers can get to know our kids a little better as they go around filling out a survey related to career interests, things like that. But also it gives our teachers an idea of what Zello is, and frees Mr. Brummett up about what he tell us 12 lessons a year, that he can do other things, more social emotional type things he's not been able to do in the past. So that's going, so far it's gone really well. And then the other thing there to talk about is back to employability skills. One thing, our MRA data that we have from our Leader and Me survey, which we're super excited about that. But the data talks about being sure you have a trusted adult in the building. And that's been an area of focus for us as well. And, you think, hey, we're good to go. We're working hard with the kids all the time. But when it comes down to the survey about that, it's like, okay, where do we need to work on that? So we've worked on that some. We're continuing to work on that area. So that's definitely a work in progress for us, but we feel good about where we're headed with that. So
about your investigation or action.
It's similar to Lincoln, so we've had like a reading team, an SEL team, a tech team, but with this leader and me, we're gonna do the MRA again and decide, do we keep these teams or we need to adjust them?
How do you log the coaching conversations?
That's a good question. That's a work in progress. I know with our grade level teams, we're able to do that some because we worked hard where we'll kind of assign a student or a teacher to a student and go out and discuss things with that kid because in the old days with team, a few years ago, we used to pull a kid in and talk to him, with 5 adults and 1 student. Those days are kind of over. And so we go out and we send the teacher out to go grab a student or talk to a student, visit with them. And so some of those things we can, navigate better with the grade level teams. Good question.
Any other?
I have a question. The PM Academy, is that during the school day or after?
Good question. It is 3:25 to 3:55 every day after school. And one thing to talk about there, our goal is to get to the point where A's, B's, and C's don't have to attend, but D's and F's do. This year, we kind of started off the first semester with just the F's. And our F numbers have whittled way down. It's been fun to see that happen, not only our grades, and so way down. I was working it the other day for a teacher who was gone Friday afternoon. They bailed on me, but so we were down to about 6 kids who had F's. And so it was really nice for a certain grade level. So it's neat to see. But yeah, it's 3:25 to 3:55 every day.
Every day. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll have Wakefield here next month, and then we will ask them all. We'll have a schedule where they'll each have a meeting, each building their own. Next year where they can come and share their data, their scoreboards, their progress, if they want to show examples of things. That they're doing, more of a presentation from each of our schools. Consider this more just like the baseline.
All right, go on to the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda?
I did have a question on the building usage. I noticed some of them had a fee and others did not. Is that just a
It just
donation?
follows what's written in board policy and we charge a fee and when there's no.
Okay, okay,
At one time, if students weren't involved, we didn't have to pay anything. But then we changed that to where we needed a custodian or something like that, then you were supposed to pay a fee. But I always question because we got adult volleyball practice, no students involved, but we don't charge them to use a facility.
that's
So
that.
that's kind of not in the. My other question on that too was, we don't have class, our buildings aren't open, but they used our building on Thanksgiving.
So the updated policy from 2 or 3 years ago, the hinge point for charging or not charging. This is vague, it gets more detailed than this, but if the event is making money. Because of their public tax funded buildings, it's the hinge point, generally speaking, is if the event. Produces a profit, then they get charged. And that's very generalized, but.
So back to the idea that we let them use a building and it's a holiday, and I just don't think we need to have anything in our buildings when we're off for all.
Was it CCYBA? Is that,
No, it's Tom DeBush and 3 different basketball groups.
well, and that's
We have an
CCYBA.
agreement with C's.
And they may have not, at the beginning of every year, CCYBA comes in and they tell us they schedule their practices for all the different grade levels. And then they just put it all on there with, no, it's like they're every Thursday from 6 to 8. And on that particular day, they probably didn't actually come into the facility, but they just got it reserved because they're in there every Thursday from 6 to 8:40.
Well, I just don't think they need to be in our buildings don't be opened up on a holiday. Personally, but that's just me.
Good. I agree with that.
So the policy is KG, if you wanted to look it up,
Thank you.
the details. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Second, all those in favor? Okay, so. Reports. Board reports. All these comments, anyone?
I have a bit here. I wanted a couple positive comments and then talk about KSB. I, looking at the principal reports, the great improvement in attendance, especially Wakefield High School, that's a tremendous improvement from last year. So great job, guys, in getting students there. And I'm really enjoying the high school musical groups that have been forming around town. It's great practice for them, but it sure is nice for us too. I was able to attend KASB, and so I'll just give a quick summary on what I attended. Friday night's keynote, Matt Learman talked about civic leadership. Saturday, I attended a keynote from Randy Watson, breakout sessions on conflict resolution, boards, rule and policy, ensuring legal compliance, communication strategies, and school budgets, as well as visiting the trade show. Over there, I sat some pamphlets and catalogs that I got from the trade show that applied to things that we talked about on our facility tour. I know we have a bid process and everything that kind of gives you some ideas and of what things are costing, especially when it talks about playground equipment and things like that. I distributed copies to everybody of the KSDE accountability report for USD 379. It sounds like the new ones are about to come out. That's district wide. And if you go to the website, you can get building breakout for that. And then some documents from the keynote speaker from Friday night that to encourage dignity and civility in conversation and board interactions. So there's some good content there. Just a couple of quotes that I wrote down from the weekend I wanted to share from Randy Watson. He said, if we don't celebrate our successes, our challenges will wear us down. And I think that's really important in education, that we do make sure we celebrate our successes. We talked about the level of 1, 2, 3, 4. 50% of kids in level 1 are chronically absent. So that gives you validation on why we need to focus on making sure our kids are in the school when they need to be. He was talking about credit recovery, and I liked this perspective that stop thinking of credit recovery or summer school as a punishment. Think of it as summer conditioning or summer camp for academics. Same way our student athletes attend summer conditioning or camps to maintain or improve their skills for the next school year. So our kids need to be doing for academics. One of the keynotes said, talking about freedom of speech, there's no freedom of speech without the concurrent responsibility to listen. I know personally that's a hard thing for me to do sometimes, but I really like that quote. You talked about when possible, keep the conversation out of the limbic zone of your brain. Make sure to ask questions and listen to the answers in all of our interactions. And then there's a lot of things to follow up on. I have a big long list about budget management, legal compliance, communication ideas, which I talked to Matt about a little bit today. It was just a really great informative weekend. And if you wanted more details, let me know and I can share them with you.
Thanks. I was able to, and I spent a lot of my time with the legislative stuff that they spent with, and then on the school safety. They had the guy who's a longtime police officer in Wichita and talked about some things they do, and it's amazing. There's some things in there as we get into talking about that don't cost, of course, that they've done that is really interesting. So it's a good day, very informative. Anybody else?
I have one.
Go ahead.
While I was not able to attend the basketball game, I saw videos and photos that Mrs. Thrasher posted about when the young students were drumming, and I was very impressed with that. And it was nice to see the older students mentoring and helping the younger ones, and it looked like a lot of fun. And they're going to do very well if they stay in that.
Who else? No, we'll move on. Brett?
Most of my report, I did put the preliminary legal max in there. We received that late last week or today, one of the two. But anyhow, it's in there. Everything's looking pretty good there. We'll continue to analyze those numbers, and of course, none of it is officially official until KSD does come and do our audit, and so that will be here in the next few months. And just a reminder, that preliminary legal max it does include budget authority, and so we build in plenty of authority, so that number always goes down from the preliminary. Once we get our audit, it'll edge down a little bit more, and then the final audit will come in June. So, but everything preliminarily is looking pretty good. We're a little down on that risk, but we knew that was coming based on some of our data, and we made adjustments for that. Other than that, it looks like we're gonna be making a change with board docs here soon, and so August will take the lead on that, and she included some data there within my report to share with you about what that means for us. So that's the short version of mine.
Any questions?
We don't really have any other option, do we?
A majority of people use Board Docs or Diligent as the parent company. When we've looked at the
There's one other.
listserv data, it's, most people are using this company.
We have lots of years of data
Yes.
housed
Yes.
within the system too, so.
Right, I must say that the Clay County connection. That's seems, I mean, in my opinion, that's excellent. I mean, we were finagled all the ins and outs of getting that compiled. Thank you.
Mr. Weller does a great job with that, and that communication piece takes a lot of time and energy. And so he's been taking the reins on that and several other communication initiatives. So that's a Mr. Weller thing. So be sure to tell him thank you, because that takes a lot of time and effort and energy, so. I think he's back there in the corner.
Anything else? No, Anita?
She's at another tele board meeting tonight.
Is that, we would all. Good job.
One I want to talk about in mine, because I didn't want to get too lengthy in here, but we were able to find a consortium home for our Perkins funds. It's just us and Concordia. So we felt that was a really good match. Geographically, it's close, so if we would make purchases of piece of equipment that we needed to share, it wouldn't be out of reach to do that. Putting our two amounts together, we went over the $15,000 threshold, and it also means two districts have to agree on how to spend the money within the guidelines of it, obviously, but versus being in a group of 40 or more. And so I think it was a win for both of us. So this will be kind of a new adventure for us moving through, but we think it will help us maximize those dollars. Like I said, we're in the beginning of process of starting to work on that. So we'll start writing the grant second semester for fiscal year 26. So the fiscal year 25 we did a year ago with Smoky Hill, and but yeah, I think it'll be a win for both districts. So for sure.
On the curriculum, you said you're gonna give us an update next month, but like an 18 or 75,000, is that probably, will it be this time or what's?
I got a quote and it was a little bit under that for this one. Because the teacher additions would not be included, or any additional training. We think we could do a lot of that with in-house, or maybe just a couple Zooms if there's some new features, but on the 3rd, during our standard alignment time, we didn't want to take them out one more time, and so that was important to them too. So we're going to have the company Zoom in with us at 9:30 that morning and just share some of the features and things that just make sure like our new teachers that are new to the profession can see all the things that are there that come with that subscription, so. I think you saw, we did get a grant for the AED discount, and so those are in and here. We're working on our cardiac response plan, and we were excited we got the Healthy Habits grant. That'll really help the Lincoln Garfield Project Lead budget. I'm sure you can see in there, it's pretty tight. So, I don't know if you were wondering, but on the Wakefield summer grant, that contracted programming says 4,000. That was Rock Springs. So when they wrote their original grant, it was to go and benefit from Rock Springs. If that's not a possibility for traveling purposes, there are some other similar programs that we could contract to bring in and support. Greenbush, some of the service centers out there do some of those things, but they have that built into their grant. They have quite a bit more for summer than Lincoln and Garfield do, so. Just the way the grant kind of fell.
Any questions? I did enjoy being a part of sitting and listening to that. It's what's available and the technology now that the teachers, staff can use is pretty incredible. From lesson plans to the one that shocked me was talking about the video clip and having the video clip and being able to go through Chat GPT, whatever, and get 3 different lesson plans with questions on it like that, you know, and then we still get to finalize it and all that. That's neat stuff. It really is. So I enjoy being a part of that meeting. So
Yeah, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, you're good.
Jacqueline, you know, on that 21st century grant, for instance, now, how long has this been in implementation?
So Lincoln and Garfield are on year 13. And Wakefield, they had a hiatus in there, but of the grant, they're in year 10, but there was a gap in there.
Okay.
There was 2 years of a gap where they didn't have the grant. So,
Okay.
and so we, as long as it comes open, I'll know, I should know in January, maybe not in time for the board meeting, but usually mid-January, they announce if they're going to offer those again. And so we would plan to rewrite. But again, we wouldn't know till probably May if we have it or not.
So it sounds like it's been pretty much longevity wise, it's been something that at least you can apply for each year and.
I can only remember once in the last 13 years that it was not available.
All right, thank you.
It fiscally wasn't even an option. Highly competitive. And your own data, so like your census data plays into it as far as your poverty level, that plays into it. As well as the way you write your grant and the way you implement past ones, so. Well,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
Anything else? No, then Ben?
Where you going?
We're on board right here.
There you go.
All righty, technology report,
That's
kind of.
hot yet. About ready to get.
I know. All righty, okay, so basically this summer, you know, we've gotten our normal rotation where we purchased computers for the 8th grade and 7th grade. And we did that, and then we moved some of the laptops, basically when the 7th grade laptops, we moved down to 3rd grade. And Lynn Alt and Dave Roberts were a huge help this summer. They do a really great job, and we wouldn't be able to get everything done that we do without those two. They really do it. And basically that's we count as one full-time position, so they each get about 20 hours a week, so it's not too stressful on them. I mean, we kind of let them work the hours they need to. If they need to take a week off, they could, you know, bump their hours from week to week. And
and let them do that, so, and they, you know, they reformatted and updated most of the third through eighth grade computers, and they actually had to get into all the high school computers too and touch those this summer, so that was pretty big. Switch upgrade, we're set to do that in December. I think you guys approved that last board meeting. So we're set to do that, and I think everything is good. They got the stuff purchased. Most of the equipment is already here, so that there shouldn't be any problem there. To get those guys in there for that. Cybersecurity update, know before update. Know before is basically we send out phishing emails to the staff and we do it once a quarter. And we've been hovering around 10%, anywhere between 8 and 12% is about what we've been the last 5 quarters. The industry average is around 34%. So our teachers are doing a really good job. Be nice to get that a little lower, but it's, you know, we're doing pretty good with that, so.
That's their click rate.
Yeah.
So that's the percentage that click on something within the email.
Yeah, it's
You
basically,
can open the email. It's what you do after that.
yeah, it sends out a fake email, so you open it up and it'll say, you know, click this link for, and they get pretty tricky. They do a really good job of disguising them, and the teachers have to really be paying attention. It's a lot harder. A lot of times if they're on their phone, it's a lot harder to see that it's a spam. I mean, that it's a phishing email, so.
We
But-
use that same software in the
Yeah.
banking that we're doing now, and gals a little mad at me, because over a year, if it's perfect through the month, we get to go have a treat, you know, you get reimbursed for a treat. So we've only had like 3 of them this year because of somebody clicking on the tricky emails.
Yeah.
When you get assigned training, if you click too many times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they get training, if they do it, the training is usually just a video between 7 and 10 minutes, just a little video they gotta watch, and a lot of times there's questions they have to answer about it to make sure they're.
It's a pretty big deal.
I just skip the click and I go straight to the scrap of the training.
Throw them in the car.
Yeah, I was saying, most of mine even know what's going to training.
Yeah, that's but I get there, first thing I do in the morning is throw away about 40 emails, and then I start looking at.
That's why you don't answer mine.
That's right. I thought it was phishing, sorry. Bark is our student monitoring software, and that monitors, like bullying, sexual content, violence, harm, weapons, that type of thing. And that's going pretty well. The principal, basically, when those notices come in, if it's a high enough severity, the principals get emailed and the principals kind of handle all that themselves. So, and if it's a severe issue, or it looks like it's really, you know, it could really be an issue, they will call and it's to make sure they'll call until they get a hold of someone on the list. Like suicide and that type of thing, and violence and that type of thing, and they'll even notify the police if it comes to that, so. You know, if the students are doing stuff on their personal phones, of course, we can't see that. We can just see the devices that they have and what they're doing with the school stuff. We'll continue to use 2-step authentication for our staff, and that's on Skyward and Gmail. And basically it just sends them a text and lets them know that, you know, you guys know what 2-step authentication is by now, so. We have ClassWise for our classroom management tool, and it's through LineWise. We had that in like 4 or 5 classrooms this past year at the middle school, and we're gonna try to implement that in the whole middle school this year, and then we'll implement it in different grades from there on out, so. And that basically the teachers can see what's on the student's screen. Had some issues with it. I think we've got most of them worked out, so we're gonna try to go ahead and do a full-fledged run with it here pretty soon. E-rate, you guys, we covered E-rate, haven't we? You guys kind of understand what E-rate is, and there's basically, there's two categories. Category 1 is basic stuff. That's our internet, all of our WAN connectivity, a lot of that stuff's through Twin Valley. And that category 1 basically gets funded every year. Category 2, you have a certain dollar amount you have to work with, and you basically have a 5-year period, and you have so much that you can spend in the 5-year period, and so we can buy network equipment and that type of stuff, and get a basically 70% discount on that. So it's a huge savings, and that's what we got the switches through. So we say, you know, the switch was, I don't know, what was it? How much was it?
Switch was
95,000.
Yeah.
28 out of
Yeah.
LE and 67 out of E, right?
Yeah, so it was a huge project. We ended up paying 28,000, which is a huge savings on that, and that's something that we really needed, so we'll talk about that a little later. Oh, not yet. look at. Yeah, you can see, we still do have some money available on E-rate that we're probably not gonna be able to use it all, just because you have to spend money to use it, and we're in decent shape. The next project, we're gonna probably be looking at doing the next major project, we'll be upgrading our Wi-Fi again at some point in the next, not next year, maybe the year after that, though, that's something we'll look at. The Blue Ribbon Task Force, you guys are aware of the Blue Ribbon Task Force, kind of what they're doing. Basically reviewing screen time, and the technology used for our students across Kansas. And there's a copy of their recommendations. There's a link there if you guys want to follow that and read more about it. They are due to meet in December, so I think next or later this week, maybe
Tuesday
even.
and Wednesday, yes.
Yeah, so that we haven't got their full recommendation on that. I've looked at some of this stuff, and Linewise can do a lot of that stuff. I've talked to them, and I think if it happens, we should be able to implement that hopefully without too much of an issue, so. Never easy when you try to roll out something like that. There's a lot of variables we'll have to take care of, but I think we'll be good there. 5-year cycle.
We just attached it.
Yeah.
We don't need any action.
Yeah.
It's just for FYI, and I think, as we later talk about budget reductions and things, that's why this is simply FYI right now.
Yeah.
So you can see what the kind of tentative outlook is, but we'll see if we need to make adjustments. We've been talking about that.
So do we have any technology purchases paid for out of anything like building budgets or anything like that?
If they get like projectors, they'll get projectors out of building budgets, Apple TVs, that type of thing. Printers, if they want to get their own printer to have like an office printer, that comes out of their budget. We take care of anything network related, that's purchased from our end. I mean, if we need to put in a new switch, if they add a room and we need to add something to that usually comes out of our budget, so it doesn't come out of the building budgets. So I think that's kind of the criteria, right? So.
Charging cards.
That's in here.
Yeah.
We originally had we had like a big chunk. And then we just, from looking at and just trying to balance where our spending was. I know Ben came and said some of them are hanging in better than others, and so we just, starting in 25, 26, you can see there's 5,000 each year to look at what needs to be updated, but when we did the original charging cards, there was a spot on a cart for every device that we had. But it would require some classrooms to share. And so if a building wanted more and they didn't want to share, then that was going to come out of their building budget. But we gave them enough cards so they did. Every device had a home to be charged in.
A little more.
Yeah, a little more.
What's one card cost?
About 1,000.
Yeah, a little under 1,000, I think, for the ones we were looking at. They vary in price quite a bit. I mean, you could spend $5,000 on start, but we didn't get those. We can't afford those.
You have questions? Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to discussion business items. First up is the calendar.
Well, we have some calendars here for you guys to look at. Obviously, no decisions this month. There's one thing we've learned, there's never gonna be a calendar that makes everybody happy. And, but we, through, just a different process, we have some feedback here and have received some. There's 3 of them there, lots of factors. One thing to point out is, one of the things on here is called the calendar checklist, and it's just a reminder that the calendar has to fit into 3 different documents. So it has to meet the negotiated agreement, has to meet KSDE's policy, and it has to meet your guys' policy. So 3 different things have to talk to it and make it work. And then once you do that, you have to balance, what is optimal for instructional time for our students and for their families, and what is best for our staff as far as work time, professional leave, or professional development days, and also where the days off fall, those kind of things, so, very different calendars for you guys to look at. If you have questions on any of them, we'll do our best to answer them, and again, no need to, not to vote tonight. Last year we did the preview in January and the vote in February because we didn't think that was right to ask you on your very first night. Some of you were new and asked you to approve the calendar. So it really works where we present it in December and ask for approval in January. And the reason for asking for that in January is it helps us with planning moving forward. We do have some professional development with Leader and me in August, and the quicker we can secure the dates that we want, it'll work better for us and help us maximize that, so. And also for families, about this time of year, we start getting, people from like maybe the junior class wanting to make arrangements for their graduations or what weekend at least, have an idea, those kind of things, so, happy to answer any questions that you have.
I came up and met with Jacqueline and we went through the calendars and it was helpful for me. The one that, you try to on the families, that's who I hear from the most when we don't have school or like that. And they've got to work and they've got to find some place for their kids. And, the only option, that we haven't done before as a school board back and the one that, me personally, that I would like to see us stay away from is the whole week off at Thanksgiving. There's a lot of people that work Monday, Tuesday, even on Wednesday, they're working people. And
Most
so,
favorite calendar of everybody on there, they're out more, they're off more than they're in school on that calendar from November 21st to January 6th. On that, and that's the favorite one of everybody.
Jacqueline brought up a point, if you add the other two together, correct me if I'm wrong here, on the responses, if you add the other two together, there's very little difference. It's almost a 50-50 split
On the classified.
on the
Not on the
classified side.
certified.
As far as if you say, so, but yeah, that's right. And so to me, that's over the next month, that's what we got to think about in the decision to make. That's awfully hard on families to take the whole week of Thanksgiving off and they've got to work.
Well, it's hard on our classified staff, the more days you have off.
Yeah.
Really.
I didn't include it on here, but I have it and I'll make sure Mr. Nelson gets it to you. I did it's just kind of a bullet point for the 3 different calendars. And it just kind of highlights something about each of them. And I will say in calendar C, yeah, there's more because of the week off at Thanksgiving, but there's more student contact time in C than there is in A and B. And there's more consecutive weeks, less interrupted weeks, just the way it falls. And I'm gonna tell you, we've been hit up about the Thanksgiving thing probably the last 4 years from some of the staff, and that is a lot to ask, especially when working families. And I'll tell you one thing I tell the committee, and it's true for you guys here too, to consider that, every community has to make their calendar fit for their community and have to decide what that is. If you have a post-secondary school in your town, or depending on how close they are, sometimes that is a factor to building a calendar. Obviously, military connections are sometimes a factor in building your calendar. Recruitment, retention, families. I know we've in years past had calendars that get out earlier in May, and there's a concern about how early that is as well. We always have the conversation about CASA. Is it better to start school before practices start or after? It kind of just depends on where that start time is. So when we made that one with the week off at Thanksgiving, intentionally went back, and I think you can see on November, it's 3 full weeks of school. We didn't have a have an in-service on the 11th. And kind of adjusted a few other things in October to make a few more full weeks, but again, the decision is your guys's, and there was actually 9 calendars out there, and these are the 3 that made it to you guys, so.
And the other thing, like with the C that I brought up, just of looking at it, was that the parent teachers conferences in both semesters are really early in the semesters, where the other one's in October, then the other one is back, and it's earlier in the semester, and so that again is, is that too early to have parent teachers conferences when you start and you have them 5 weeks later? I mean, there is a thing of getting involved early and or is it better to have late in the semester? And so, those were my 2 concerns when I visited with Jack about that. Okay.
I think one of the things about that parent teacher deal is. Personally, I would think we would want to do it before the first 9 weeks grade card come out. So that they could at least sit down and say, hey. You're going in the wrong direction, or we're going in the right direction, and
Right.
the next 9 weeks, let's see if we can turn it around, because the next semester we're in trouble.
Right.
But maybe not, and we haven't done that in the last 3 or 4 years, we've always had them late. And then
the calendar,
by the time we have parent teacher conferences, it's almost too late for that first semester.
and then the calendar, it has the parent teachers conference right after the end of the first 9 weeks. And then the second semester, it has it early in the semester, at the end of February. That just, like I say, just discuss and think through over the next months.
It might be useful to know attendance rates on the Monday, Tuesday
96%.
before Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So they did show up.
I checked it.
Thank you.
Was that students or staff?
Yeah.
Just check it.
Well, and I would caution us to go against the committee of our staff of what they requested. I mean, we gotta have a real good valid reason when we've asked them what they want, and then we say, well, sorry, we're gonna do something else.
But again, when you talk about parents working, that's my biggest concern and who I hear from, so.
Got a month to mull it over.
Yep, exactly. So, but I appreciate Jacqueline spending time and
Well,
explaining
Oh, Shannon.
a lot of that stuff
It's
too.
fine.
Yeah, no, Shane, you got time.
Were there any comments from the staff, or they just chose their
We
preference?
just asked them to give their feedback, on which one,
Pick one, which one you
You
like.
didn't,
Yeah.
not really reasons why?
no.
Okay.
That's the committee sifted through the 9 and gave the feedback to land on the 3.
Okay.
And the committee is supposed to go back to,
They're a contact point, so when I sent these out to the staff, I listed who those people were who had been here and said, if you have questions, or you want to talk to them, here's who you go to. So, and we also have CCEA at the table, and just making sure, again, that they hear those conversations before, we talk about negotiated agreements, so that person could be involved as well.
Okay, and another question so when you look in August and you have the first day of school, and then you have the first day of school for 7th, 8th, and 10th through 12th, how does that affect contact days? If some of those, I just don't understand, how does that?
Well, in
So
Clay
you report your lowest building anyways, so,
In Clay Center, the 6th grade at the middle school go the first day, and the
Yes.
9th graders go.
and the way
And the
this
next
is
day,
written,
everybody else goes.
the way this is written, it would be the same at Wakefield, because we saw those as the transition years, and,
Okay.
even though they're in the same building, they are going to a whole new hall, just different area, different, a locker for the first time for a 6th grader and those kind of things, so that would actually be district wide.
So that day with those younger students, that's a contact day. Okay.
but it's district wide, we always have to count our lowest building for the district.
Okay.
And so if the building had,
Well, 2
Major.
years ago, we had to count the middle school when they had the leak over Christmas vacation, then we had to redo the floor and clean up there. They were at the building, they had to report
that
because they
comes
were,
off the total
that
district
comes
minute.
off.
And so lowest man counts for the whole, for lack of a better term, for our total minutes reported to the state. Does that
And
make
there's
sense?
a separate set of hours for the preschool. And so we do a daily log for each of the preschools, the morning, afternoon, and full day. We actually do a log for the after-school program as well, because they have certain hours they have to meet too, so.
And is it typical to give the calendar, let staff make a decision before we were to see the calendar? Is that-
Yeah, as far as the feedback piece, like the survey, it's probably been 5 years since we've done one of those.
Okay.
That just kind of depends, if the cohort group thinks we kind of need that or want that, but it's typical for, we have to build something to bring to you, so I have to have, Brett and I have to have somebody's, their feedback a little bit
Okay.
on getting it started. I think the bigger thing that I also like to use that opportunity for is just to educate them on how the calendar is built and, the misnomer that we have all these extra days. We don't have extra days. We don't have any extra days. We have 184 like we're supposed to off negotiated agreement. Are not extra, but are cushioned for any kind of emergency falls on our start and stop time of our school day, which is set by the board. So you guys set the start and stop time to our days. So.
But I think and Mr. Weller again did great communication. Him and I sat down and Ms. Fitzmer, we kind of talked through what that meant. And Matt, I think, did a really nice job of putting it into simplified terms on, I think the misconception is a lot of times snow days. We have, how many snow days do we have? Well, we don't have any extra days built in. No one is coming to work an extra day of work. It's all based on minutes and hours. And so we have our cushion for snow days based on minutes and hours. And so it's start and end time. Everyone, certified teacher is going to work 184 days, no matter what day is off or what day is on. Student contact days can change just a little bit. And as Mr. Fitzmeyer said, with student contact days, that gets changed. They can come fewer or more days, give or take a few, but that's generally set by PD days. Because you get to count PD days as half
Yeah.
approximately of student contact. And so like, for example, calendar C has more student contact days because it has fewer PD days. And that was kind of the give and take was, okay, if we're gonna take this week off, we're gonna try to get longer chunks of full weeks. We're gonna reduce the number of PD days and increase the number of student contact days. So overall, kids are coming to school more, there's fewer PD days, and the give and take to that was, we'll take Thanksgiving week off. That's been the general feedback we've gotten so during COVID, the history is during COVID, we hit a really, really bad patch. And we had, I don't remember how many staff out, but we weren't gonna be able to, I don't think we announced this publicly, but we knew we weren't gonna have enough staff to have school on that Monday. We were gonna have to cancel because we had so much illness. And so we took that week off and we did that the one time. And since then, we've had a ton of feedback from staff requesting that. Some feedback had been, just to be completely transparent, we don't feel like we have enough input and feedback into the calendar. And so that was another reason why we went back to, and the survey wasn't a decision, that was feedback for you to consider, for us to consider. And so the committee looked through those, picked those top 3, and then the staff survey is to gain feedback. Because that was a general perception from staff, was they didn't feel like they had enough feedback or voice in what their calendar looked like. And again, that wasn't a decision, that was feedback. And so there was some give and take by offering that option as a full week. And again, those are fewer PD days and more student contact days.
One thing, and I have it in another document if you'd like, it's, in the winter of 2013, we were getting close to, having to come back at spring break because we had used so many of our emergency days. And instead we added 10 minutes to the day. That's why we have kind of odd start times of, like at the high school, for example, like 8:10 to 3:20. It used to be 8:15 to 3:15. Well, at the end of that spring, adding the 10 minutes didn't hurt us. And, we were at 187 for our negotiated agreement, and that was a year we were unable to give raises, just due to the money out of the state. And so we dropped to 184 and kept the 10 minutes on there. And so that was a consideration on the certified side, but we had done the math that adding those 10 minutes still kept our classified staff in the same range, that they weren't being reduced either. So, you can look at the certified side, but you also have to look at the time of the day and the classified staff as well.
Do sports start on the 11th or the 18th?
18th. 18th. Let me double check. We always have the Keisha calendar with us, and it's yes, August 18th.
Anything else for right now? Bring it up for next month. Give everybody a chance to take it over. Very good. All right. Moving on, health insurance for you.
We have some guests, and I'll just kind of give some background. For those of you that have been on the board, this has been something we've been. The health insurance specifically has been something, and Kathy's in the audience too, in case we need questions from her, but, this has been a topic that we've been really evaluating and analyzing over the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so we'll start with health insurance first. We've been a part of the consortium for around 20 years. It's served us well. The plan structure, richness, and costs have changed significantly, especially in the last few years. Specifically when we look at employee deductibles. They've increased fairly significantly, and some of the services and co-pays within the plan have not kept pace with premiums that we've taken on. And so, the tricky part with the consortium is because we're in the pool, we are one of the larger districts in the pool, and so, we don't have access to our data as part of these bylaws that have been in place for a really long time. And, when you're in a pool, I think that's one thing. We are a large enough pool on our own that, it appears as though we would have very good likelihood of being able to gain better health services and eventually better costs. But of course, the most important thing is providing better and higher quality plans to our people. The tricky part is if we want to get out of the pool, we have to notify them by February 1st. And we don't generally get our premium renewals until May or June. So we have to say whether or not we're in or out before we even know what it's gonna cost. And that's really hard to do for obvious reasons. The second part is there's not really much incentive with as big of a pool as we have is to work with our employees to better our health services so that we can incur better services for our people and better costs. And the main reason is we don't have our data, and by data, it means our performance. What the insurance company's paying out versus what we pay in every year. And if we're on our own with a broker, our own broker service, it will take this is a long-term play. This isn't a short-term plan where if we choose to go out with our own broker next year, we're gonna save a bunch of money and have way better plans. It's not an overnight thing. It's a long-term plan. And so if we were to, and we had a committee that's been met several times throughout the fall semester, we gave a survey that we had great participation in, asking employees what was important to them, what they enjoyed, what they disliked, what they liked about the plan. And ultimately, the committee, after hearing all of this information, Jason's sat in on several of the meetings as a board rep, but said, yeah, the committee consensus wise said, we think it's in our best interest to potentially look at going with our own broker. There is some risk in doing it. You know, IMAs, their research team did a whole bunch of research and some benchmark data across the state and the region of similarly sized pools and districts. And benchmarked our premium costs and our plan offerings to other local, not local, but similar sized organizations. And it appears considered to our benchmark that we're paying a little bit more than a premium than we should, and we're not getting quite as good of plan offerings to our employees as we should, particularly when you look at those deductible or max out of pocket numbers. Our plan that we're currently on is significantly increased. When you look at a max out of pocket for a family of, you know, is it 12,000 or something along those lines? That's a significant risk to an employee. Whereas I think there's some areas that we can really make some improvement, but again, there is some risk. So the process would be, and I'll let May talk here in a minute, but if we would choose to go out on our own, the first step in that, we don't have any data to go out to bid to an insurance company. So IMA, if we would hire them as a broker, doesn't have our data. They don't have our performance. So when they go out to the major players or major insurance companies to bid, they have some census data and some other research tools that they will use on our behalf. But it will, like they called it shadow pricing, I think. We would likely see some version of shadow pricing the first year. Meaning an insurance company is gonna say, well, what are they paying now and what's their plan look like? And to be safe, we're probably gonna have pretty similar pricing. I don't want to speak for Nick or his team, but it sounds like they're pretty confident that we wouldn't incur increases where if we stay with Greenbush. If we look at history, past history, the likelihood of increases are pretty likely if we just look on our past experience. And so that's health insurance. And then Nick and his team will get up here and talk, and I have some folks on the screen. And I'll just briefly on the benefits side, the committees, after we make this decision because of the February deadline, the committee will then work on looking at the benefits side of the things. So we just have a lot more time because our renewal is next fall in October. So if the committee has the desire and we look at our data to make a change on the benefits side, we'll do that in the next several months. But I would like to invite Nick and you guys. I don't know that we have 2 seats, but wherever you're comfortable, we can probably grab.
Here, I'll give you mine.
Is that the hot seat that I heard about? That's
Well, that's the hot seat right there.
And so that's.
Brett, you've been on mute that time.
I'm on mute, yeah.
That's kind of-
Lip read?
That was on
Sorry.
purpose.
How do I do this?
How do you do that?
That little,
Which one?
For the mute.
Little button.
That little one up here.
Little button says mute.
I didn't say anything
That
bad
was
about
fun.
you.
So these two
Wanna sit
positions
here?
were necessary.
Yep,
Yeah,
those
that'd
are
be
yours.
perfect. Yeah.
You use that every day.
Go ahead. Here's a copy, if you guys want to take some notes on.
Surprised you didn't know where.
Jacqueline wishes she could mute me all the time.
Now that she knows where the button is, watch out.
And so any other kind of background questions before Nick and his team get rocking? All right, report here, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. Thank you, everybody. Cody and Martha, we just talked about the background of where we got to this point from the previous conversations over the last 3 to 4 years. So IMA, we're a full service consulting broker. And so we have a dedicated education practice that works directly with school districts. Cody Purdy on the screen right here is the lead for all of IMA. IMA is a group of about 2,500 employees. We're employee owned, but we do significant work in Kansas. We work with anywhere from Wichita Public Schools down to 1A. We work with other districts in the area. They partnered with us. We partnered with about 8 different schools over the last 16 months. So yeah, it's been great. Martha, she's a lead account executive within our team. And then Lisa is our market lead for our practice. So this is the core team that we have. The great thing is the groups work with us, still have the core team. We just expand and evolve to it. So the information that we have here today in this presentation is about 3 to 4 years of work and analyzing on how we can better provide health insurance, one, for all the teachers and the staff, but also we know recruitment and retention is a very important thing, trying to get individuals to the school. we hired Dr. Andy Canings. He was with the school district for about 35 years in different schools throughout Kansas. He's on our team. It's great. So we have his feedback on where we are, but today we'll just talk about where we are, where we're going, and then how we can ultimately help your district. Before I go too far, it was really pretty cool at the beginning. I heard the legacy you guys were talking about. I heard Steph.
Teacher legacy.
Yeah, Steph and Ian Lane. I know them very well, so that was kind of neat to hear. So pretty exciting. Neat that you guys do that. All right, well, we will jump in. We'll start with Cody unless you have any questions about IMA or our practice. All right, Cody.
Great, thanks, Nick. Yeah, as Nick said, I'll just give a little bit of background about myself here and why I'm sitting on the phone with you all. Appreciate you inviting us in and letting us talk about this with you. I've been with IMA over 10 years now, in the business for 16 years. The majority of my career has been spent working with public entity clients. It's kind of a passion project. And so built out this practice. And one of my responsibilities is to support the teams that service the clients that we have, that cities, counties, public schools. And as Nick said, we now are building a team dedicated to the schools specifically. Bringing Dr. Andy Canings on was a perpetuation of that. It was a recognition of, I've done benefits for a long time. Our teams do benefits exceptionally. They know it well. We know public sector from working with it, but we don't know it like we spent 35 years on your side. And Andy knows that. And so he and I collaborate a lot on just delivering tools and resources for teams that are servicing public schools. That's really important when you get into when Nick mentioned consulting instead of brokering. Brokering is very transactional. Really anyone with a license can go and get a quote and potentially place business. There's a lot that goes into it, and consulting takes it to a next level of helping you to be diligent in managing of your program. And so all of my teams and myself follow the philosophy of, we first want to educate and inform, and then we want to collaborate together to be strategic and active in the management of the plan. Can't set it, forget it. You need to know what's going on with the plan. You need some local control. And that's where we excel, is in helping our clients do just that. So tonight's information is just kind of a snapshot of that. A lay of the land situation is when you're in this consortium, where you get your medical and RX benefits today and some ancillary benefits. You're in a pooled approach, right? And there's pros and cons to being pooled. There's kind of a community aspect to that, and we're in this together. And then by its very nature, some plans kind of win, some plans kind of lose. The good risk is helping the bad and vice versa. But within this particular pool, or let me take a step back then. So the question becomes, are we going to be better off if we are able to take on some more control of our own plan and be diligent and active in the managing of that plan? Really, we want to talk about trying to manage the biggest part of your spend, which is claims, and helping you be able to do that over time, which claims drive premium. So the better you're able to manage the plan, the better the premiums are for you in the long run. Lower premiums allow for lower contributions and richer plan designs for your employees, right? And so that's our end goal, is to help our clients have high performing plans that bring added value to the employees. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to accomplish, is the best possible plan that we can get for them. There's a couple of ways of knowing what a plan should cost. I mentioned one, going and getting a quote. Just taking the facts and circumstances of a particular plan, sending it out to the insurance carriers and asking them to provide pricing. Another alternative would be to have some claims data and information, and using similar methodologies as to what the carriers would do, we could underwrite those claims and tell you within reasonable margin of error where we would expect premiums to come in. Unfortunately, in your current arrangement, neither of those things are possible without potentially then having to leave the pool without knowing the potential circumstances. And so that's a little bit of a barrier. We all prefer more information, but that doesn't mean there's not a way of getting insightful information to inform the decision making of, hey, are we potentially going to be better off going and securing direct coverage for our employees and managing those plans in the long term. being able to diligently manage your plan specific to your population is a recipe for success. Our book of business is really performs at lower than trend averages because we help them accomplish that. So that's really the gain for going on your own. So what we've done is pulled together the information that we can and leveraged a lot of different reference points to try to get a picture of, do we believe that in the broader insurance market, there's the opportunity to get benefits in line or hopefully down the road better than we offer today, and within reasonable variance of where we're at in premiums today. Keeping in mind, if you make this change, it will be at renewal. You're likely going to face a renewal increase like you typically do in the pooled arrangement. And so it's baseline plus some is where you'd end. But we wanted to be sure to be diligent in leveraging information that is available. So we looked at some localized benchmarking, some regionalized benchmarking, and national benchmarks, as well as demographic information specific to your population to inform from an underwriting perspective, a really holistic picture of what we think where your plans stack up, and deduce from there if we believe that we can go out and get some competitive options in the market space. I will say, on the whole, on multiple levels of looking at that and adjusting just based on our experience of underwriting, my background is financials and underwriting plans and negotiating and marketing routinely as a technical consultant. We do believe that to be the case. We believe your premiums and then the relative or the plan designs that are resulting from those do have room for potential for us to go get some pretty competitive options. We'll walk through that. I guess that was kind of a long-winded setting of the stage. Before I dive into the weeds of that, any questions, comments, or concerns first? Okay. Well, I will continue on. I want to just kind of set the stage with a couple of just insurance concepts. When I say plan rich, or rich plan or less rich plan, that's speaking to how good the benefits are for the member. Put another way, how much it's going to cost them when they go get a service. So the higher the deductible, the higher the out-of-pocket maximum. If a member has a heart attack, for example, that's going to impact how much the member pays out versus how much the plan pays out. The richer the plan, the less the member pays. It's a better benefit on the whole than a less rich plan. Richer plans at higher premium. It's more costly services. And so these things kind of hold true. One mechanism for keeping premiums down is to make plans less rich. That's a benefit takeaway, right? And so when we look at comparing your plans from a benchmarking perspective to others, keeping those things in mind and inform the analysis that we did. So the first slide here is showing the district's premiums are reflected in gold through these few examples, while the others are in blue. These are other Kansas school districts, just as a quick reference point. It's just a representative sampling. It's not our full book. But trying to go as localized as we can. This accounts for being in Kansas, being in more rural areas, being the demographics of the teacher group, because the type of industry matters in setting premiums. And just visually what you can see here is, on the whole, the plans, your premiums are on the higher end of what we're seeing across those groups for the employee-only tier. And when I jump ahead to the family premiums, that holds true, not quite as pronounced, but it's relatively true. There is one that has some higher premiums, but that plan with those premiums is richer. So we would expect it to be higher premiums because it's a better underlying benefit for the population. So on a localized level, when we benchmark the total premiums for the plan, so not accounting for how much employees versus the district pays, just the total premium, the total cost, they are higher premiums than kind of the regional, or I'm sorry, the localized benchmark. When we jump ahead and look at it another way, we're now going to take into account the plan designs. if you had the exact same plan designs as others and your premiums were just a little bit higher, that wouldn't indicate much opportunity, right? But if you have slightly less rich benefits and higher premiums, now you're creating a spread that would indicate to us there's a potential for us to go out and get some potentially better premiums for the same benefits that you have, or the same premium and get richer benefits, right? That's going to be the ultimate long-term goal in this process. We are benchmarking now against a broader regional and industry specific cut. So it's not just Kansas anymore. We're looking at all education in our data set, which is about 550 education institutions, I think, rolled up into this data set. So we're going to compare your PPO plans versus the average PPO plan in the data set. And anything highlighted in the pink is just reflecting that your plan design is less rich than the average. There's no right or wrong answer to plan designs that you choose and what you offer to the employees. But for our purposes of what we're looking at here, if I see less rich plan design, I would hope to see lower premium, because that's a cost containment mechanism, right? If we make it slightly less rich, we save on premiums. Down at the bottom here, we're benchmarking the employee contribution and the family contribution. So we're charging more for slightly less rich benefits, and then the overall premiums are there. And again, all of this plan by plan specific factors matter, and there's decision making and a lot that goes into it. But on the averages, we're seeing the PPOs, and the same is holding true with the high deductible health plan, with the exception of the family premium on the high deductible health plan is competitively aligned for you there. So this is looking at the district versus all of education, and then we look at the same cut, bringing it down of a smaller region, more in our area, a 4 or 5 state area here in the Midwest, the West Midwest. Looking at the costs again, of our premiums compared to the benchmark premiums. And so the high deductible health plans, there's actually not enough in this smaller region with $5,000 to be statistically credible or kind of an outlier. So the nearest comparison we have is the $3,750. That should cost more than ours because it's a richer plan. And again, we've got kind of the recurring theme of our premiums are a little on the higher side. This isn't to say that, you know, your plan is completely broken and the pool's been the wrong way to go. It's just to set the stage and inform that, yeah, we do believe that there's the potential on a standalone basis to go and find some options, leverage negotiations, leverage competitive marketings, leverage other tools that would be at your disposal standalone to try to negotiate those premiums down and those plan designs to a more beneficial way for your population. I've got one more little the underwriting nuance that I'll throw in at the end, but I do want to stop there. That's a lot of information. We just cruised through pretty quickly. Any questions on that? Well, while you digest that a little more, I will throw in just, you know, it's more intelligence and just FYI that we are trying to consider everything. We want you all to feel as comfortable about the decision and confident as we can be, absent a crystal ball to say we know exactly what's going to happen in the market space, right? There's underwriting things that will apply, but a couple of things beyond that data set that we just reviewed that from an underwriting perspective give me some confidence. When I look at the age, gender factor and geographic factor and a couple of things that apply in underwriting at carriers, with a 1 being a normal and yours being a positive indicator against that, that would help to say, okay, when Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare or Aetna or Cigna is going to underwrite your plan, they're going to adjust things a little bit down because of those factors for you. Just another positive kind of indicator that we would use in negotiations and then leveraging that process to try to get the most aggressive premiums out of them as we can. Full disclosure, it will be blind underwriting from them. They won't have claims information on your plan. We'll be working off of a census and plan designs and premiums. But when you think of a pool, the carriers are a huge pool where they're able to take on more risk and dilute it over things and give us some adjustments and assumptions going into your premium setting. That if we're working and negotiating with them, we think can get you in line with what you have would be my hunch. They tend to do with limited data, they tend to presume that the premiums you have now are in line. So they're going to get pretty close to that, which would work to your favor in that I don't expect it to be a lot higher. And then when we look at this as a 2-year deal, if really your premium should be lower, you might have flat or in line with the pool this year, but when the plan performs a lot better, you're in line for getting premium reductions or benefit enhancements in subsequent years. And so we're really talking about being an intentional, methodical 2-3 year strategic plan together that will over time result in premium savings and plan enhancements for the population.
Might have covered it in the meeting, but like with Greenbush last year, they told us 20%, there's only a 12% increase. What's your normal increase year to year? Do you know, or do you have a number for that?
Yeah, did you hear that, Cody?
I did, thank you. And that's a great question. And I'm gonna give the short answer, 7 to 10%. The longer answer is that's the broad national industry trend of what we're anticipating over the next couple of years. And what a lot of the carriers assume in their fully insured underwriting is somewhere 7 to 10% is going to go within the next couple of years. Our book of business that we manage, it's mostly self-funded, so we're not getting premium renewals, but we're managing their total plan cost and we're helping them renew those, is in the low single digits. I mean, we're 4 to 7% renewals on average. You do have anomalous claims or claims, and we can't prevent a lot of large claims happening occasionally. We do have every once in a while the 12, 15, 18% renewal, but that's not typically a year over year thing. We're managing plans to that, mid single digits range.
Thanks.
And I think, I mean, these are obviously a lot of time and thought, and energy has gone into this, but if we start with the end in mind, where would we want to be in 3 to 5 years? If we would choose to leave the pool, have our own broker, kind of take control of our own destiny a little bit, have a lot more feedback and opportunity with especially plan design and some different things, what's most important to our people. And if we're on our own, we have the ability to make some of those changes. But if I look out 3 to 5 years, I think if we can eventually get to a partially self-funded option, that could really be advantageous for us. It's going to take several years to get there, but I think that's when we would really potentially see the opportunity for much richer plans and lower premium. And I think there's lots of different options. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that tonight, but I always like to start with the end in mind and where do we want to be in 3 to 5? And I do think there is lots of opportunity to get really creative in how we do that. We just have to get our own data. We have to get a few years of performance under our belt, eventually to where we can start saving some premiums, maybe set some money aside so we can be partially self-funded with very low risk. But I think it has a lot of opportunity to potentially provide a lot greater benefit to our employee and premium. But that's a 3 to 5 year plan. And so you got to do step 1, 2, and 3 before you can get to 4 and 5.
Yeah, well said. And the nice thing, Lisa will briefly just talk about, so that's the couple months that we really work on the financial aspect of it. But what we do for our districts, the other 10, 11 months out of the year is really what drives value. Full transparency is number 1. That's how we built our company. That's what we believe in as employee owners. But Lisa will talk just briefly about how we help benefits committee. I know Matt was fantastic in our conversations about the voice of the employee. Kathy's been great, already working with her on some additional project, but just a couple minutes on how we help throughout the year.
Sure. So the life cycle of the client really starts at whatever point we decide to start partnering together. We like to focus, when we're not focusing on the renewal, we like to focus on compliance, making sure the plan is compliant. We have a checklist and a team that will work through those items with you just to make sure that you're compliant. It's not a checklist format where we determine if you are or are not in compliance, but rather a partnership that we're going to help you make sure that in the end, you have everything you need in the event of an audit or something like that. At the same time, we're also looking to help with process and procedure. So there may be some things that you do really, really well, but maybe you want to look at something a little bit different. We can help you analyze that and work through what that change process might be. At the same time, taking into consideration the culture. As Nick said, as Cody said, you are trying your best to attract and retain employees. And we understand that, and we understand in doing that, you're trying to reach multi-generational expectations. So what might work in one way might not be the best option in another. We want to listen to you and be an extension of helping you solve that. We sometimes can do that through the committees, benefit committees specifically. We find those to be extremely positive in that we first usually start out educating your employees on what matters most to them, answering questions they have, sometimes for their own individual situations. That over time then evolves into some of what we talked about with the data. When we have the data, we can see where benefit changes can be made with the least amount of impact on your employees, but can generate the most cost savings to the plan. So for us, it's a 12-month focus. And we, in addition to focusing on the financial and the things I mentioned, are also there to be accountable to you with regard to reporting how the plan is operating, what trends we see, so that we're always working forward and turn everything into a more proactive conversation than a reactive conversation. One of the things that I would just add as well is technology, and that goes along with the multi-generational expectations. We will help you vet what you're doing now and can bring in solutions, sometimes no cost solutions that can help your administration, your administrative team save time so they can focus on other elements. At the same time, making sure that you have something in place that brings the very best employee experience, because in the end, that's what we're truly all working to solve for, is to take care of the employees and their dependents. So. Any questions on that part? And then we're here as well when you have claim issues. You know, I mean, that's the part that nobody really wants to deal with. And when you have those scenarios, we want to be a part of that solution to take that burden away from them. So.
No, that's great. Yeah. One of the nice things too is once we actually get access to the data and you guys are going into teacher negotiations and you're trying to figure out raises for the year, you can go to us and say, what do you expect our renewal is going to look like anytime out of the year? And we're going to be pretty close on that, which is nice versus having to wait and say, what do we wait on our renewal? And you get it late and it may be 20%. How much out of hiring raises do we have to take out of there, or what it looks like? So from a budgetary purposes, like Brett mentioned, that's the long-term aspect of the play of this. So.
And then transparency.
Transparency. All right, real quick, Cody, on the last part here, this is the timeline slide, what it would look like. So November, December, we have done a lot of discussions, even go back a couple of years to get to this point, but just recently we had the voice of the employee aspect here. And then also we had a capabilities discussion with the district. So Cody, if you wouldn't mind, what it looks like moving forward from January on.
Yeah, and we can flex in this on everything except for the notification to Greenbush, right? So that their contract requires that we let them know that, hey, we're intending to terminate by 2/1. Once we start marketing and leveraging the insurance marketplace to see options, that triggers their right to terminate the partnership as well. So really, the sooner we can hit the ground running, the better. Carriers may or may not release early quotes. We'll be leaning on them to get them, but we will have a very intentional plan in place for walking through, reviewing the insurance market, negotiating those premiums, locking in an option that works for you, and helping every step of the way along implementing that program. So come October, when you're rolling out benefits, or September into October, everything's ready to go. You feel good about it. We've had a very effective communication plan with members, and your position for success going into the next year. So really that 2-1 at the latest being the jumping off point, but the sooner we can get started, the sooner we can start those. There will be some amount of it's just us being experienced, having long-term experience with the carriers and making a business case on your behalf. And so leaning into that over time will be beneficial as well.
All right, any questions? We appreciate your time. Any questions before we move on?
What does it cost us to be part of Greenbush versus what would it cost us to broker?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's part of the pool. It's a little unclear as to where all their fees are built in. So whereas if we go direct with a broker, we know exactly what our fees are. And something that we have talked about would be going with a direct fee, not a fee based on the percent of your premium. So if that makes sense, so it's in conversations that we've had, it didn't make me very comfortable to go into an arrangement where your fee's based on a percent of the premium. Because the higher the premium, the more the fee. And IMA said, we're not interested in that. We would be very interested in looking at a flat fee. And so, long story short, in the Greenbush on paper, we pay a certain dollar amount per employee. And but there's a lot of other fees that are built into what we pay. So that's kind of like this idea of we get out on 2-1. But we don't tell you how much your plan's gonna cost till the spring. I don't have any hard data to show that, but we know based on what we're paying and their fees built in. But straight up, Nick, if you want to answer that flat broker fee, that percent rate.
Yeah, so what we look at is, and Brett's right, so typically on a district your size, it's about a $50,000 fee. But what we're really trying to focus on is that 98% of your cost, those $2.5 million costs that you guys are spending. How do we get that lower? 10-20% increase on that's pretty significant. So our goal is to try to say yes is our fee, so we can provide all the services, compliance, all the additional items for you all. But the goal is to try to help reduce your overall spend, that it really kind of becomes a wash. So that's where you kind of get into that noise a little bit as the aspect, but we can work on that, whether that's a fee or whether there's a certain amount that's built onto a policy from a PEPM is what we call it, so per employee per month. That's all negotiated and figured out with you all, but it's really how do we save the big amount of money for the district continue going up at the pace that it's.
But the long story short is IMA will earn $50,000 off of our district.
I'm in if they cut it in half.
It's negotiation time. I like this guy. It's negotiation time. Is that secret hot?
But no, we talked about this too, is at the end of, here's kind of behind the scenes, the industry can charge up to about 5% on the number. So if it's let's just say a $2 million spend, it's $100,000. We believe that's way too high for a school district. And what we've done as a company is that we've built it to the point that we need in order to provide the services, but not to the extent that would be out essentially in the private world. So it's just.
No, and I was just going to add to that. So we will equate that $50,000 to a per employee per month cost. And then there are services that we pay for that we extend to you at no cost. So that's factored into that $50,000 as well. So it's not just a pure profit that's going and is used in whatever way, but rather mineral. We've not talked about that. It's an incredibly wonderful HR tool that would be made available to you that we can talk about later. And there are other elements and components that go to the resources and the deliverables to you that are included in that amount. So we take that part really seriously because to Nick's point, we really do want to be a partner. We don't want to be just a transactional broker. We want to be an extension of what you're already doing really well. And with that, just so that you are aware, full transparency, you will always know And in advance of any decisions, it's a conversation to say, hey, here's what we know is what we need, what's needed for mineral or the other elements. And then you will know prior to any of that. Because we, to Nick's point, Cody's point, want to get you to that point of full transparency as best as we possibly can.
And I think that's the frustration I have with our current situation, the lack of transparency, the lack of answers, the aid responses. And you see our employee satisfaction is good for our current health plan, but that's because we're paying for all the premium. And if we continue with what has been presented, we're gonna have to seriously look at putting some of that cost on our employees. So if we can find a way to not have to do that by looking at our options, so I think this is a good plan, good direction ahead.
I did include something earlier that I think is equally as important, and that's the education. In that process of transparency, we also have the opportunity to educate your employees so they can be better consumers. And then everyone's bought into the same end goal. And that does have a positive impact, but it's also pretty rewarding when everybody's moving in the same direction. So.
I think you shared, we talked to a couple. You've done this and resolve.
You should work with IMA. Yeah, I was at a kind of a regional thing and there was, I think 8 or 9 districts that had recently in the last few years partnered with IMA and they were just ecstatic over the service and the benefit that they provided. And it was very reassuring to me to have such highly rated feedback from my colleagues that had made that change. And, you know, be completely honest, it's been, like I said, a 3 to 4 year decision and it's taken a long time because it makes you nervous making a change. You know, it's scary because you have to tell your current provider that you're out before you know what you've got. There's some risk in it, and that's why it's taken me a long time to get to this position to where I'm confident in making this recommendation. But I truly believe that there's some opportunity, but I just want to keep saying it's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term strategy, but at least we will have the potential to control our own destiny in the future. And for our employees, when I look at those differences in deductibles and out-of-pocket maxes compared to our benchmark plans, we need to get better plans for our people. Even if we end up paying the same amount in premium down the road, if we can provide richer plans to our employees, to me, that's a real benefit. And right now we have, from my vantage point, very little to zero control in what our plan for our people look like. And that's really where it ends with me, so.
Now, for instance, on IMA consultants, is this like a annual contract, for instance, that? Okay.
Absolutely. Great question.
And that's another reason for controlling our desk. There's no rules of when if we don't like the services that IMA provides after year 1, or we're dissatisfied, there's no rule requiring us to notify them by a certain date. We can tell them that we were ready to want to move on at any time. And we're not really held hostage to any agreement other than for that 1 year that they provide the service.
One of the nice things too, let's say Blue Cross has been your partner for a couple of years and they come in and they want some absorbent increase. We have the ability to go out and look at the market. That's the nice thing versus like right now, you have your one option. You can't even go out or they'll remove you from there. So that part's good. IMA's client retention is about 96, 97%. So we pride ourselves on that employee ownership. So our clients do stick with us, but every once in a while, somebody may want to move on. To Brett's point, that can be broken. No worries. We'll do everything to not let that happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And so it was the committee people issue were on to.
Yeah, did you have anything to share since you've been doing this for a while?
I just think we're at that point where we have not had options to give our employees, we do it with everything else, and I think we do our due diligence here as well.
I'm coach, I believe in competition. You know, the more competition.
As long as it's competitive competition.
Yeah, the better off you have it of getting better deals. So,
Brett, you touched on this, but just to be clear, what we're working on right now is Blue Cross Dental Vision, so core product. And then we have ancillary or our
Right.
volunteer products.
That would be,
know if-
come in a few months.
Yeah,
if we
that
offer.
we would maybe address as well and see what is out there.
correct.
Did you guys offer that as well?
So we do partner with a group, and the great thing is that we've seen anywhere from 20 to 30% decreases. Better plans, we've already done some analysis and we feel very confident in that. Which is great because of the teachers, classified staff ones that are signing up for it. We're seeing savings, so the great thing is they get improved coverage, lower cost, plus the education aspect of it, which we believe is really important, and we hear great feedback from that of saying, I actually went in, I understand what my healthcare looks like. Also, in addition, accident plans, cancer plans, et cetera, how does it all tie together? There'll be independent meetings with those individuals from a non-sales perspective, which I think is the biggest part. It is not pushy at all. Here's your plans, here's what you have, and the feedback has been phenomenal.
Like I say, the people put in their work, I mean, I'm comfortable making a motion tonight. I don't know how everybody else feels, if you wanna wait till January. Thoughts on that? Cause you say they put in a lot of work and committed into it and
We'll put it to vote. I move that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to engage IMA as the district's health insurance broker to negotiate health insurance premiums and benefits on behalf of the district.
there's a motion.
Second.
And a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
The second one.
Let's see, it ain't hotter.
I move
Just
that-
got hotter.
I move that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to draft and deliver a termination letter to the Greenbush Health Trust, formally notifying them of the district's decision to withdraw from the health insurance pool effective September 30th, 2025.
Second.
And a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you guys for everything.
Tracy.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Cody. Thanks, Martha.
You all.
We're gonna take a short 5-minute break and then we'll continue on.
That's not just the answer, but before we try it. Each district.
As an employee.
I'll let her answer that. He's the expert and that's the. But no, it's not gonna. She has a question. I don't know what, yeah.
I think I remember. Maybe.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to get the best. I'm gonna now stay.
Question. We never our intention to disrupt. We have really good relationships with the caregivers that we're really totally down. So we will always advocate to stay with the barriers that we are with, unless there's a very strong reason to do something. And I feel it's pretty effective. We can do that. It's crazy.
You're not hearing this.
But if we don't, clients have to change every 20.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for jumping on those committees and. Yeah.
Excited to see.
Yeah, this will be good.
So
There's a lot of
that's
people that-
always, if it's working.
I heard a lot of those.
And then specific to that other state, we are all the way to Washington. So with the information. And so we do what's called the network. To show.
Well, nice to meet you. This is kind of fun.
I was glad Jeff threw his hand up and said, hey.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fun. So I knew they were both out here on the day. Yeah. All right. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Each one is a change.
Have you? It's like that place has good acoustics.
That's the Methodist church. And they have, that's what they did. They have an auditorium and they're finally holding the
I know I lost. I know what phone it was, but when Carrie was senior, she had to play this order.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like it was like stage, like you could barely even see her.
Oh, my son was watching. I actually coached him.
What
am I getting? Best thing. When you're a friend, that's my son.
Special. You got it. No, I got
When they're loving.
Won't be the first round, we'll have a bye.
Yeah, I really like it. She likes me. It's kind of great. She wants to be like, yeah, her strength. You're gonna have to. Grants. No.
You know, roundabout way.
Anybody who's in the room, audience.
Only one of them information after about your first go. I get some up. I have in the past, you know, this is. Thank you. And they're gonna be doing that.
I don't want to.
String up Christmas lights in the back. Show up in the next 2 weeks. I have to take them all down and put them all back up. So I'll get them up at least a week before Christmas. This is the first year. I think my neighbor's happy too. I haven't seen him put that thing. He usually waits for me and then he does this.
We came in.
You make me feel bad now. I'm gonna have to go put up some.
We put up our. But my kids are not.
I do have two of these easy little stars you hang in a tree and it brings it down. Oh, yeah, they don't take very long, at least. Yeah, my birthday's on Christmas, so yeah, I better. Oh, really? You're making me feel bad, so I better.
So it's more about.
And that looks really good. Is there any vanilla ice cream to go with it?
It's pretty healthy for you.
Smells good.
Yeah, and look.
You're gonna say no?
Yeah.
You don't wanna be a pain for eating?
Big thing. Your numbers now. See, they got to spend. That's my.
Yeah.
Which they got out there. Usually do quite a bit. Yeah, I don't even know. So it's
Thank you. I don't know. You're not, it's still warm too. Everything's like, thank you. I'm not doing that.
It's me on.
Yeah, I knew.
I just heard that part.
Everybody? All right, we'll resume the meeting. Go on. Next thing is the budget reductions and enrollment projection.
Yeah, so I wanted to give everyone kind of an update. There's been, again, a lot of work behind the scenes. But the background, as you know, we're down 57 students this year. And with higher graduation numbers and lower incoming kindergartners. It is a significant reduction in revenue for us that we will incur next year. And so we've been kind of going through a process with a team of folks to prioritize some areas for reduction. There is some positive in here too, though, that with base aid per pupil have going up and continuing to go up, we have been able to use those dollars to give raises and benefit incentives over the last 3 to 5 years, staying steady in enrollment. And so that's been a really, really good thing. No one has a crystal ball, so we don't know that that will continue or not. But the one thing that is certain is we can't wait and see what happens in the fall. But we have done our best to try to collect some data in that regard. So we're actually at a coffee combo and talking about this with a group of community members, and Allie Schooley, you all know Allie, her husband teaches and coaches for us too, but she's a math person, and I was talking about this and she said, well, have you put basically, have you put an equation to your past data to help predict future data, a predictive model? It's like, well, we look at birth rates, but no, we don't have a math equation. And so she had I said, well, would you be willing? She's like, yeah. And so during the next few days, I sent her a bunch of data, our birth rates, our past 10 or 15 years of enrollment, kindergarten numbers. And so she took all of that data and put it into a predictive model. And so she added an equation based on past birth rates and what the kindergarten enrollment was for that year. And then added, within your range, plus or minus 8 to 10 students, here's what you can reasonably predict to enroll in the next couple of years. And in the second piece of data that we've done is Mr. Weller, I asked him to utilize several different data sources. One being when parents enroll, we ask them to let us know how many children and their ages that are under 5. We also have our preschool and different community groups, and we did a survey out to all our buildings. And so that data is aligning what Allie came up with, and Seth in this predictive model is aligning very closely to the data that we now have based on people telling us if they have a kindergartner or not next year for Wakefield and Clay Center. Unfortunately, while base aid per pupil increases have been positive, the future enrollment doesn't look positive when you compare that to our numbers, district-wide in high school. And so, for example, this year, we're gonna graduate about 120 kids across Clay Center and Wakefield, and it's looking like we're gonna probably enroll around 70. And that looks to be true for the next couple of years. And so don't want to be doom and gloom. We're ahead of this. We're being preventative. We have time, but we do have to make some hard decisions. Fortunately, this first version is going to be, and I don't want to say anything's easy, but it's going to be easier this year than it will be in future years. And so something that I want to reiterate is number one, tier one has been those lowest level reductions that can impact students and staff the least. And as an admin team and department leads, we've done fund audits, we've line itemed every building and district budget. We've looked at staffing scenarios, teacher to student ratios, and we've built a tiered model of tier two, tier one, tier two, and tier three. Obviously, tier three are last resorts. Tier two, we hope to stay away from this year and stay within that tier one model. So some generalizations, it does look as though we will be able to hit our target number of 475,000 without getting into our reduction in force policy, or in other words, telling somebody they don't have a job next year. And that's mainly through attrition and retirements. And so, yes, it does mean we will likely have to ask some staff to move around in order to fill some open positions. Obviously, as we go through that process, we would want to do that and ask for volunteers in specific areas first, allow us time to have individual conversations, small group conversations, and then eventually building conversations. I met with CCEA, their president of the association, and kind of explained this to them. They understand it. I'm meeting with them and each building lead this week. We're gonna start planning some future meetings where we're gonna do some joint communication together between CCEA and myself and the board, and having some larger scale conversations at buildings, while also behind the scenes in the pockets where the movements and the changes might happen, allow myself and building principals to have small group conversations about what that means for individual people, so they don't hear it on YouTube or via a newspaper article or something along those lines. Again, we're gonna try to do those voluntarily as much as we can, find areas that make a lot of sense, and fill those positions within. Obviously, there's some other just general budget reductions. Andrew's done a great job of doing some fund audits, and it sounds silly, but again, I don't want to say anything's positive about reductions. No one ever likes them, but she's found some areas, I think with trash services, one where we're going to save a significant amount of money. And when I say significant, more than $10,000 a year, that we can make some changes. And so there's some good, even with some challenge. It's really forced us to, again, go line by line and really dig into some different things. And so I think next year is going to, and I don't want to, we'll obviously know a lot more, but the good news is the way the school finance formula is set up now, we always have a year to plan. So if we hit our reduction target within tier one this year to start us next year, we have a whole nother year before that enrollment hits you. So we are ahead of this. We are being preventative. We don't have to make any rash, quick decisions. We can do this over time. And I think there's some other pieces. We're in a very good financial situation as a whole as a district right now. As you know, reserves can only be used, you can't use reserves for perpetual expenses. They can use to help soften it. And my example would be, let's say we have a 3-year goal of a reduction. We can identify some areas where we could reduce or move and identify those over a 3-year period instead of a 1 year. And worst case, if we needed to use some contingency or some reserve money to allow us to get to that natural attrition before having to go to a RIF policy, that would be ideal. And that is priority one. Does that kind of make sense? Like if we need to soften it and supplement a little bit until the right opening happens so that we can fill it from within instead of hiring out, I think that's very doable because in my opinion, the district has been very good stewards of our dollars in the last 3 to 5 years. And so we do have the ability to do that. obviously lots of things. I see Audrey in the audience here having some exciting conversations, just very preliminarily about in the future, maybe partnering, sharing facilities and things, obviously, stay our own into all of that kind of thing. But I think there's some significant potential cost savings for both entities down the road. And again, we have not got into any details or the weeds about what that would look like. It's simply, hey, do we see an opportunity to potentially work with each other down the road? So thank you for that, Audrey, because I see some exciting potential opportunities there.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of different things that we can do while we're dealing with the crisis, use it as an opportunity. Because it is an enrollment crisis, and if we see this 3 years in a row, it will be significant. And so I do think there's some opportunity within the decline to hopefully better some services, even though it might be painful, a little painful along the way. And so I shared
To add to that.
Yeah.
Brett, is it like that pain that, I mean, my comment to it be, that's where we gotta be careful. Like, we're gonna talk about this T-Mobile thing and all that, and you say we do that, we bring in $2,000 or $200,000. Is it the biggest mistake we can make? It's when you're budgeting, you can't put things that cost you money each year and take care of with one-time money. We gotta do it with our revenue that comes in each year. Not that you can't supplement a few things, but one-time money won't work to cover yearly costs. Eventually, the one-time money's gone, and then we still got this big hole, and it's gonna be more paid. And so, it's a process to go through, but finding those reductions and not relying on one-time money or as small as possible is the most financially sound way to get through this.
And that was something Tracy and I spoke to our social studies team about too. I mean, you can look at the textbook thing and you can say, yeah, well, next year we don't have a purchase. But it's not perpetual because things have subscriptions and run out. But it can help a little in the short term, but it's just not a long-term help.
Yep. So anyway, but and I would like to just think in the next meeting, but there's a lot of information there and he keeps updating it, but set aside more time at the next meeting to really concentrate on where they're at and let them have another month of meetings and all that. We're digging into it.
Yeah, and to be completely transparent, the thing that's been really hard for me as well, we've had lots of really, really hard conversations as a small group, has been this delicate balance of communicating with you, because we have to communicate publicly, and then versus allowing time to also have private conversations with individuals, so departments or groups don't hear it on YouTube. And so I guess from tonight, I would like your blessing to be able to just, I think I've shared enough, I hope I've shared enough information to where I could then start communicating with some of our small groups about some of these potential shifts and changes so that we can have private conversations and that it's not a surprise, if that would be okay with the group.
It's okay with me. Give us an update in January. Yep. Take through all the initial stages, and the earlier we get out in front of it, the better it is for everybody. I think it's great that we can do this without, like I say, telling people is right, not having a job, which is, we have a great staff and we need to take care of them. So.
And those are the things, like, I'm extremely confident that this year we can accomplish these things. There may be some of our staff that don't have the same job next year, but I feel very confident that there are duties and jobs within their wheelhouse that they can accomplish to ensure that we don't leave somebody without. So.
Anybody have any other questions to Brett this one? On that? Very good. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Board retreat date, we're looking at setting a date. Hopefully, as many people can make it as possible. This is all going back to the VHS plan and bringing in, setting aside a night of them coming in, prioritizing some of that. Also bringing in to explain the bond thing and how that works, correct? And just a very informational thing to help us get one more step into this to think what we want to do with a few bit more specifics and how it'll work and and for people who do that type of thing. So, any questions on that? You know, I was thinking January 20th. I don't know how that works for everybody. We don't have school that day. It's a flex day. It is a Monday. And the reason I like that tonight gives Brett time to get those people here and give them a chance to discuss that. And I'm talking, I mean, no more than 2 hours. I mean, at the longest, you know, just very informative.
What day is our board meeting?
The 13th, I think.
So it's the following.
Be the following Monday. What it would be. Have any comments about that?
I don't have my work schedule for either job at this point, so we'll just have to see, try. I'll try my best.
Good.
You're thinking 6 to 8?
Yeah, 6 to 8, open 6 to 7:30, actually, an hour and a half we can. Like I say, very just informative from the people how to do the bond, how some projections there and VHS will be here with some priorities. You know, we talked about some of those things, but just narrow some of those things down and throw some of those out and prioritize them and but more informative. Hey, here's a timeline, here's what we're looking at and see how far, if we want to continue down that path. So. I'll make a motion. We set a special meeting for January 20th at 6 p.m. In regards to bond, future bond. And capital outlay / maintenance. The district,
At this location,
this location, yep.
second,
Got a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. All right, sale of the T-Mobile Spectrum lease.
I think we've been, from my vantage point, we've been talking about this for a very long time and appreciative of Dusty's support and advice along the way and thankful that he's here, that he can answer any questions that you might need, but short version is it's a Spectrum lease that we've owned for a while. It currently has a 30-year lease on it. We're in year 24, or there's 24 years left of that 30-year lease. They've offered to buy that lease out for $200,000. The total value of the lease is about $234,000.
Any questions? I think it's a good offer, for our situation and not have to wait all those years to get the money or something that we are not going to use. So.
You need a motion or anything for that or?
Probably just for me to execute.
Yeah, motion to execute. I mean, what they have here is a very, I'll say scaled down offer sheet, basically. And of course, dealing with,
I make a motion that we accept the offer from the T-Mobile contract and authorize Brett to execute it.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. The Clay County Commercial NRP interlocal agreement.
Pretty standard. I thought about consent agenda, and if you guys are on board with it, it's an annual thing we have to do, but enough of us were new that I decided to leave it here, but all those local communities do this annually for the NRP deal, and if you guys are fine, if you're fine and you approve it, my thought would be to executive or consent agenda item at each year, since it's an annual thing.
I move to approve the neighborhood revitalization plan and to give authority to the superintendent to execute an interlocal agreement on behalf of USD 379.
Motion. Second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next one is the Tiger House. I'm going to recuse myself for social conflict. I'll let you all discuss it.
I'm not recruiting, you're just stepping out, right? Yeah, not abstaining, yeah.
You want to talk on this?
Sure. We got an offer on the Tiger House. The bid was for $6,000 above the cost. And that bid was from Pigskin Holdings for the 24-25 Tiger House and
Is that you, Jacqueline? Pigskin Holdings?
It's not me.
and Mr. Bitzenmeyer's here. If you have questions about the construction or the build of the house.
I move to give final approval to accept the bid from Pigskin Holdings LLC for the 2024-25 Tiger House in the amount of $6,000 above hard cost and give USD 379 District Administration directive to execute the contract.
All those in favor?
He almost fell down on the job. Tracy.
Yeah.
You just about skinned his
Yeah, it's
nose.
like, oh, no.
You just about skinned his nose.
Just, I mean, so everybody knows, that is my LLC. I just want everybody to know, so that is.
So we know who to come to when we need to get it off the lot.
Exactly.
There will be no extensions of the city.
I understand. Yeah, especially in the.
Deadline's a deadline.
No special treatment.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Very good. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's important. The house is, I mean, it's awesome and those kids do, and something we need to keep doing. That's for sure. So. All right, next meeting. So we have obviously the policy update. You know, if anybody has anything now that you think that we need to put on the next meeting, like I say, you're always more welcome to email me those or call me if you got something you want to talk about. And that's the main thing. If there's something we all want to talk about, well, respect that and get it on the agenda for people to talk about. So
Budget reduction will be there.
yeah, budget reduction plan will definitely be there again.
And Wakefield will be here.
And yeah, we will be here for the first building plan. Well, yeah, executive session, I'm going to go into executive session, to discuss the annual superintendent evaluation and contract pursuant to the non-elected personnel exemption under KOMA. That the open meeting shall resume at 8:30. The executive session should include the board, superintendent, and council.
Second.
And second, all those in favor? Okay.
Is there? What's that? A lead like can. Yeah. I may have to stop and get some more lemons. They sell them in 550.
Thanks for the food.
Yeah.
Let's take this out here.
You know more about it than I do.
I'm just. Thanks, Matt. They said. Yeah. Does the captain have a showing? No. I can do if you want. No, I just sent them. I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you something. You know, that's time to use something. I'm gonna say 7. All right. Brett's fault.
I bet.
He said he had more stuff. So by the time you get back there, it's 5. Right.
Okay, we'll resume the regular meeting. This time then I move to go into executive session. To discuss non-elected personnel exception under KOMA, that the open meeting shall resume at 8:38. This executive session will include the board, superintendent, and council.
Second.
A second, all those in favor? Yeah. Motion carries 5.
All right.
8:38.
Okay, we'll resume with regular meeting. Next up is approval of personnel. That's hers. Is there any questions on the personnel report? Now I move to approve the personnel report, including supplemental update that we presented. A second, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Small.
And did Jeff vote? You vote yes or no?
Personnel.
Personnel.
Yay.
Okay, 7-0. And then, adjourn. Make the motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, all those in favor? Carries 7-0. Appreciate everybody's time. Come on.